Hi, everybody. It's another episode of the Peak Signing Agents podcast with me, your host, Derek Van Otten, but you can call me DVO. And I'm happy to be here with you again, where I'm helping you become the best notary and signing agent that you can possibly be. And on this episode, I'm talking about one of the number one tools I use for my notary business, which is my journal. Specifically, my e-journal. Now, if you are in a state that doesn't allow e-journals, that's okay. I'm going to share with you maybe how an e-journal still might be able to help you. And I'll also share with you how I prepare the signers about my e-journal. And at the end, I'm going to share a story about a recent phone call I got from a lawyer and how my e-journal helped me. Okay, so a lot of fun things to talk about in this episode. Number one, I do want to talk about the e-journal that I use. I know there's a lot of different e-journals you can use. If you use a program like maybe Notary Gadget or Notary Assist, I believe they have an e-journal you can use. I like using Notary Act. When I was first looking into an electronic journal, they were the one that I really enjoyed looking at their software, because a lot of them allow you to use a free trial. And so I used Notary Act. I really liked them. I'll explain why. And I just became really good friends with the owner and the head of operations. And so if you're interested in knowing more about that, I did an episode in the past. It was episode 107, where I had Scott, their head of operations, come on and talk a little bit more about it. And I'm going to share with you also how I use my e-journal to make things smooth. So first of all, the great thing about having an e-journal is it's on your phone. And we all, as notaries and signing agents, should have our phone with us at all times. Makes our job easier to respond to new orders, to whether it's email or text, how to communicate with signers, our calendar. Our phone should be always with us, I think, if we're going to be entrepreneurs in this business. And I like the Notary Act app. I just find it very smooth to use. So when I have the app here. When I first log into the app, it does the face recognition. So I like that. So it's a little bit more secure. And then you can just start inputting your journal entry. You can just as easily hit the new entry. And when it starts off with the signer's information. And the very first thing I do when I sit down with the signers, first we do their greetings. Hello, how are you? Where should I sit? I'll follow you to the table. As soon as we sit down, the first thing I say is, all right, so to get started, let me first start off with everyone's ID so I can verify you are who you say you are. I say it jokingly. And they give me their IDs. And the first thing I can do is I look at the ID. I make sure the name matches the documents. I make sure their face matches them. And I kind of tilt the ID. I want to make sure it's a legitimate ID. I'm checking for the holograms. Anyway, what I love about the e-journal, and I don't know about every e-journal now. I remember I did a few trials, but what I like about Notary Act is the barcode on the back of someone's ID. It scans that barcode, and it populates all the information. So if you've ever been to a bar or a restaurant or a nightclub and they scan your ID, what they do is they scan that barcode and it populates all the information. It should match the front, the name, the date of birth, the issue of the ID, the expiration of the ID. It all auto-populates from the barcode on the back of your driver's license. And so that's why a lot of bars and restaurants do that, to verify you're over the age of 21. Because you might be able to get a fake ID with a picture and some fake information, but to get the back of the barcode to match that is so difficult, maybe nearly impossible, which is why the states have issued it the way they have. And the app does that. I'm not sure about every app, but if you do use another one of the apps other than Notary Act, please comment in YouTube what app you do use. And if it does auto-populate from scanning the barcode. I'm very curious. I don't know at this moment, but I'm very curious to know. So please let me know. Anyway, it scans that, and then it allows you to take a picture of their ID, their driver's license, which is what I do. Now I prepare them. because I am basically taking a picture. So what I say is I say, great. I look at their ID with the signers and I say, great, looks like you. Let me use my notary journal to scan the front and back to validate that. So that's how I prepare them, because I've had notaries tell me, hey, you know what? I've been using the journal and people feel weird that I'm taking a picture of their ID. How do I get past that? So this is what I say. I just say, great, it looks like you. Let me validate it with my notary journal. I'm going to scan the front and back of your ID and it will match. So that is how I do. I say, let me scan the front and back of your ID to make sure it matches. And basically what I'm doing is I'm taking a picture of their ID. And then once I take a picture of their ID and I scan their barcode and everything populates and I can tell it matches, I say, great, everything matched. It's really you. And I do, again, I say it jokingly. I say, great, now I'm going to have you sign my journal, just confirming that is your ID that you gave me. And I might even say, you probably see a lot of notaries use a book journal. Well, I'm from the 21st century, so I use an e-journal. And they just say, wow, technology is so cool. They usually make some type of statement like, wow, how advanced technology is. And then they sign with, and I have a stylus that they use, and they sign with a stylus on my phone. And there we go. I've validated and verified it is them, and they've signed my journal. And then you can go through and put in, what is it? Is it an acknowledgement or a jurat? And then you can put every single document that you'll be signing. Occupancy, deed of trust, mortgage, signature affidavit, compliance agreement. Everything that you will be notarizing, you can input every document there and then save it. It's so convenient. In fact, what I do, so let's just say, for example, today is Monday and I have 2 appointments on Tuesday. I have the documents. I actually will pull up the Notary Act website on my computer. I have the PDF of the documents on the other side of my screen. And I'm just inputting the name and the location where we'll be, the address we'll be signing at, the name of the signer. I just put their names first and last because when I scan their barcode, it'll populate everything else. I just put their names in there. And I put every form that we will be notarizing. Again, the deed of trust, the compliance agreement, signature affidavit, occupancy, borrower's attestation affidavit, whatever it is. I input everything there and then I save it as a draft. And I do that from my computer on the desktop. So when I log into my app, I just go to my drafts. Everything's there. Now all I have to do is just scan their barcode and have them sign, and we're done at the table. We're done in seconds. I'm talking seconds. I'm done with my journal portion. Now, maybe you're in a state that doesn't allow e-journals. That's fine. You can still do the e-journal as a backup. You still have to do your book, your notary journal book. You still have to do that, but you can if you want. I'm not saying you have to do this, but it's just nice to have that cloud software backup because Notary Act is saved in the cloud, which is going to be, I believe, all e-journals will be saved in the cloud. So just great reference. Again, I'll share with you a story of how I was able to use that. And what I like about taking pictures of IDs, I am in the habit of always collecting copies of IDs. When I say collect copies, I mean I take pictures of everyone's ID. Let's just say you forgot. You forgot to take a picture of someone's ID. If you did it in the journal, you can just go back and it's there. Every entry you have ever done is saved in the app. Again, I'm talking about this specific app. And if you're curious to know more about it or use it, I do have an affiliate link in the podcast. Look for the Notary Act e-journal link. Click on that. There's a free trial you can try. And then anyway, you can click on that link and try it out if you want to. And in fact, my state of Utah, does not even require us to use a journal. We're not even required to do it. However, I still do it because you just never know. You want to save your own behind. I actually had an escrow officer tell me one time that another escrow officer was terminated by the company and had their notary commission revoked by the state, something happened. The escrow officer did not keep track of an e-journal. In fact, most escrow officers in my state don't. And when they had to prove something, they could not prove it. They had no way to prove whatever the court was asking them. They had no way to prove it. They just said, I looked at their ID, that was them, and we notarized documents. So when I heard that story, that validated that I really want to make sure I always use a journal. And in fact, that's when I looked into getting an e-journal, because I was using a book journal. However, I was always scared. In my state, it snows. I was always scared of what if I dropped it into a snowbank? What if it got ruined? Maybe somebody spilled their drink on it. Maybe they were drinking a glass of water or coffee and they knocked their cup over and it got all over my journal and ruined my journal. Like, those were the things I was worried about. My journal getting ruined. Now, sure, something can happen with the app. I'm not saying it won't or it can't. I was just scared of having that paper copy. What if something happened and it got damaged? Fire damage, water damage, theft of the journal. I shared a story on one episode of a disgruntled signer. I did an episode about that, how the signer wasn't happy and they took the notary's journal that was just left on top of the table. That's scary, right? They took his journal, the notary's journal. So, yeah, things like that scare me with a paper journal. And so I personally feel more safe with an electronic journal. And then I can go back and reference it. So that's another reason why I went with the route of an electronic journal. Another reason is because my notary bag is so full of documents. Documents that need to be signed, documents that will be signed, that just recently got signed. I need to drop them off. I don't need a book as well. So I liked having an e-journal because it's just an app on my phone. And my phone is always on me and in my pocket anyway. Now, let me share with you. So anyway, I'll share with the story of a recent phone call I had with a lawyer and how it came into play. And again, it just kind of re-emphasizes the benefits of the app. But I really enjoy it. Makes my life easier. And I'm all about making my life easier. So that's why I do it. It takes literally seconds to do it at the table. Now, recently what happened was I had a lawyer call me. Said, hey, there's a situation coming up. Do you remember these people? And I said, I do not. This happened in 2023, a signing I did. I don't remember the people at all. He said the names and I said, I don't remember, I'm sorry. He said, okay, well, just so you know, what happened was the grandpa signed a warranty deed that you notarized, granting his grandson the property. And something has happened with the grandfather. I don't remember if he has passed away or if he is a little bit more incoherent or he's in a home. But anyway, some of the family feels that maybe the grandson took advantage of the situation. So there might be a court proceedings going on. And because I notarized it, they're trying to ask me questions about the coherency of the signer. And so I said, what were the names again? And do you have a copy of that document, of the warranty deed that I signed? He said, yeah, I'll send it to you. The lawyer did. So I see the date of when I notarized it. And now I see the names. It's okay, let me look into this. I look in my email history. Boom, I see the email history. One of my escrow officers asked me to go get that warranty deed signed. Then, because I had the date, I then went to my e-journal, looked at the date, found the entry. How cool is that? And I did this from the desktop version than the app because it was just faster to maneuver through the desktop version than on the app because it was 2023. I've done thousands of closings since then. Looked it up, found the pictures of their IDs because I take a picture every time, and I remembered them. I looked up the address because I put in the address of where I was at. All that was in the e-journal. You can put the address of where you're at. So I have the address of where I was at. I have the pictures of their IDs so I can look at their face because I'm a very visual person. And then it started clicking. I looked at the email history from my escrow officer, and now everything was clicking. I'm like, oh, now I'm remembering this situation. Because I remembered their faces from their IDs, and I looked at the email history of the thread with my escrow officer, I was able to piece together everything that happened. I then responded to the lawyer with a time frame. Okay, on this day at this time, I got an email from my escrow officer telling me the details. On this day at this time, I communicated with the signer and we scheduled the appointment. This was all in the history because it was all in through email. I said, so I got it when I got the order, when I got it confirmed. When I was done, I responded, hey, we're finished. We had a couple questions. We got those questions answered. I'll be there to drop it off in the morning. So I was able to give a timeline. There we go. A timeline of history with the lawyer. I was able to email them. This is when I got the email. This is when I confirmed with the signers. This is when I arrived, because we set it for this time. I arrived around that time. And in my journal, we have that entry in. And in fact, they had some questions. And I remember asking this question. I answered the question because they did seek legal advice about the whole proceedings. So they sought legal advice beforehand, before we did this warranty deed. I remember the home. It was actually a townhome. And I remember it was snowing that day. It all came back to me, and I put all the details. I arrived around 5 p.m. It was snowing that day. The grandfather and the grandson was there. They both were in my notary journal. They both signed the form. I made sure they understood what they were signing. In fact, the grandson's wife was actually in the living room with their newborn baby, playing with the newborn baby in the living room. And I remember all of this thanks to my e-journal, and I saw their IDs, and I remembered their faces, and I remembered everything. This was from 2023. This is March 2025 right now. This just happened. And so I remember, I emailed all of the timeline to the lawyer. And why did I do that, by the way? To show that I am credible. Not only because I'm a notary and I'm a credible person, but my memory, I remembered details. I remembered when we confirmed the appointment. I remember what the house looked like. It was a townhome. I remembered it was snowing that day. That the grandson's wife was playing with their newborn child in the living room. That they asked me, that we had questions about, that they did seek legal advice before signing this. And I just showed how credible I was. And he said, wow, I was not expecting all this information. Thank you so much. Just so you know, there's a court proceeding going, there may be a court proceeding going on. You may be called in, but because you were so detailed, you might not have to be called in anymore. I'm like, thank you. I do not have time for these things. I mean, I'll do it if it helps, but I do not have time for these type of things. But thank goodness I had my e-journal, and I always take pictures of people's IDs and store it in my journal. That helped me a lot. And I always put the address of where I'm going in my journal. So where we're at, I always kind of pre-put that in, but you can enter it in the app, or it will look at your geolocation and it will pinpoint your actual location. Let's just say it was a last minute appointment. Just someone said, hey, I need a power of attorney signed. I need a warranty deed signed. I need something signed. Can you do it right now? Excuse me. You show up, you scan their ID, and then you click on detect location, and it will pinpoint exactly where you are. That's how cool the app is. You take a picture of their ID, you have it stored, they sign it, and when they sign my journal, my e-journal, I know how they sign. So I can say, let's just say, for example, their name is John Wayne Doe. But in my journal, they sign John Doe. But the documents, they need to sign John Wayne Doe. So I just say, okay, now, here's the documents. Now, just so you know, when you sign, you do have to sign with your middle name. And then I have an idea of how they sign when they sign my journal. I know how to guide them. But if they sign it in a way that matches how they should sign on the documents, say, great, sign this way every time on the documents. So another great tool is your journal. Another great way I use my journal. I hope this brings value to you. If it does, please give the YouTube channel or this video a thumbs up, but subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to podcast platforms, share it with any other notary signing agent you think can benefit from it. It just helps our whole notary community get the best value and show our value so we continue to be peak signing agents, successful notaries, credible notaries as well. That's one of our main jobs. So keep being awesome, everybody. I love you all, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye.